I've traveled around the country, I've seen the dusty plains, but I'd rather be back home again, avoiding all the rains. Sat around the table with the culture running deep, with a harvest in the jaws and promises to keep. Give me a home out in the bush, please, with lots of more trees, a bong or two, me mate Wild Roo and the rest of the crew, with Timmy, Tink and Mark too. We've got a strong culture and some good stuff to share, with the microbial plan and the science in the air. Got the masters of the craft and the crew's all there, in me old smoking chair. Give me a home out in the bush, please, with lots of more trees, a bong or two, me mate Wild Roo and the rest of the crew, with Timmy, Tink and Mark too.
G'day legends and welcome back to the Terpene Table. As always, I'm Wild Roo and today we're going to be chatting lighting. We'll kick it off with the intros. So to my left we have the fairy grow mother. Tink, how are you, my friend?
Hi, it's good to be here, and I'm grateful for everyone that's listening.
We have the bear hiding in the woods.
It's the bear in the forest, and I'm looking forward to pouring through this with you guys.
And Mud doing what he does, probably sniffing some dirt. How are you, mate? We've lost Mud.
We good now? Sorry about that.
Yeah,
No,
Yeah,
there he
you
is,
go,
we got
mate.
him.
Yeah, I am back. Yep, Mud's about again.
Yeah, so he was busy sniffing dirt.
Yep,
Yeah.
can't help it, mate. Just got it all set up nicely and it's looking perfect. So the smell coming off, it's superb.
Beautiful. And today we're going to chat lighting. So I think the man with all the science talk behind our lighting will be the bear.
It's just because I love diodes. Just there's something about the construction of like a little light chip is just it's so like Jetsons to me essentially. Like I love lights. It's gonna be a good night.
Cool. Light emitting diodes and all.
like that.
Alrighty, where do we start? Let's start maybe with PPFD and why a higher PPFD increases our uptake speed.
So essentially, my apologies. Essentially, the PPFD increases the rate that the photosynthesis is providing more photons to the light-dependent reactions in the chloroplast. Look, and just also just a little note for the listeners as well. This is my first night having a bit of a vape while like on a cart before recording, so I am
Off
going to
your
enjoy
gut.
this subject.
Nice, he's going to indulge himself and dive
Awesome.
right in. I like it.
Bring forth the passion.
That's it.
So look, essentially,
more
M- Mark.
photosynthesis. No, you're right. Is going to equal more sugars. Am I correct?
yes, yeah, exactly, and also more like base proteins and elements inside of the actual cell walls. Kind of their movement is going to just increase. The more you have PPFD, but also there's a lot of other variants like your DLI and your color rendering index, and I guess how the light works. And a lot of that information we gather from what type of diode the actual companies put into them. And it can make a huge difference between all the brands that are out there at the moment. Like, I don't know about everyone, but I started on a company called Viper Spectre when I was, in my little infant bear cub days, and look, it got me through. Like, and that's what I love about this new generation of lights is that
And you're talking
everyone
the
can
blurbles.
start somewhere. Yeah. Look, I mean, out of all of the lights, the blurples still led the charge in the LED change, and I mean, we've got the LM301Hs and the evolution chips and all of that, now, and better understanding. But it kind of sparked the first interest in, I guess, people like myself's mind, who I'm like, how can I replicate the sun as accurately as possible inside of a small area? And to me, the Viper Spectres, the little things you got off eBay, back in the day, that was the beginning. That was like the blurple passion.
It was too, and it was probably the premium end back in the day of eBay lights.
Oh yeah, I remember like just being able to plug in, like just plug in a board directly to a 240-volt outlet, like seeing that type of stuff around. Like we're spoiled for choice these days. So I was going through some of the new offerings from some of these companies, and the price points are still great, but where these companies have developed themselves to after the last 5-6 years is quite an impressive place now.
Definitely. Companies investing a lot in lighting. And we're not just talking about your new companies of eBay lighting either, which are your Spider Farmer, your Mars, your now Viper Spectra, the Vivo Sun. We can start diving deeper into some more high-end stuff if you'd like.
Look, I like I did a bit of a chart up to have a look at what's out there in hydroponic stores, like regularly stocked on shelves and not kind of unique kind of order in items. And we've actually got a pretty good kind of spread throughout all of the different brands available just to walk into a store and pick up. And it's ridiculous, the actual price in terms of price per watt, value, grams per watt, how much U moles, which is the like density of the PPFD coming out, the actual even spreads. Like it's so important for that environment, because you can have high PPFD, but what is it? How is it spreading? How is it applying? Like, what spectrum is it getting? And now it's an even easier kind of justification for a lot of different lights. Whereas back even 3-4 years ago, there was only two kind of main brands that had access to these chips.
Like it. So how do you think they've affected how we grow compared to your traditional HPS and metal halide and things like that?
Well, you can really kind of like contain an environment with one of these lights. Like running something at 800 watts just inherently generates less heat than a double-ended 1,000 watt, drawing 1,150 watts from the board. And that, I think, dictates us going into a more airy kind of usable mediums, like your deep water culture and your really light kind of
Yeah.
coco coir mix for high output, high turnover propagation intents. And I think that's probably the biggest advancement here is, we all don't have to be in rural Tasmania to grow with high pressure sodiums all year round. We have access to LEDs that are kind of getting more and more efficient in each generation at replicating the sun. And some of these units are up to 87, 91 CRI, which is the actual rendering of the true sun value. A lot of the lack there is the UV spectrums that I guess reside in the outliers of some of these diodes, and that's where the drop in the difference is. But across all of the brands, like
So you're
realistically,
talking there, sorry, just to interrupt again, UVA and UVB diodes you're talking?
yeah, exactly, and their interaction and benefits on like terpenes, cannabinoids, and a lot of them more expressive ones rather than just your THCA and CBD. Your intricates are defined by the UV because it's a part of their defense mechanism of the plant. And look, I think that indoors where we're getting close to like the pinnacle of what we're going to do with it before eventually everyone just realizes outdoors there's nothing that compares to the sun, the ultimate kind of lamp in our lives. And realistically, the more
Well,
we
it's the
move away
ultimate
from these
lamp
types of
in
things,
Mother Nature's life, isn't it?
yeah, and our governments need to change to actually be able to say, well, why, regardless of how you're looking at it, if somebody's running an 800-watt lamp unit inside of a house, it'd probably be better if they had 4 plants outside.
Yeah.
on just their environment, the pockets like of the power companies. It's
I definitely agree. Which it actually brings me to my talking point that I brought to the show for tonight, which you've tied in perfectly to. So I'm going to lean into that right now. And it was a bit of a study out of Sydney's Lambert Initiative in 2025, where they took some samples from around the ACT from home growers and put them in the lab to see what was actually happening.
Nice.
Yeah, so because the biggest scare, I think, with legalization and things like that would be, that everyone seems to talk about is high THC is going to be the biggest thing,
Yeah.
And the tests all came back with an average of about 9% THC from all these home
Sure.
growers.
Which is
So
perfect in a world of everyday users.
exactly.
To
So when
start
you're growing for,
Yeah.
medicine and for things for your own personal, use,
Yep.
that's probably perfect for it's a, as researchers described it, mild and modest.
Yep.
And it sort of proves that home growers aren't really just trying to blow their own heads off. They're looking for something
Yep.
sustainable and balanced that they can just, use consistently.
It's funny. This is touched on something that has been big in my world, like because I've been around it all for so long. Coming from bush buds and low THC, but very happy users, very happy with what we had because we didn't know any different. And then hydro came in, and then it became what I classed as nearly a hard drug, to the inexperienced, to the first time users, to the ones that didn't necessarily weren't looking for the high or anything like that, like to get off their guts, but they became really hard not to.
Like a narcotic.
And this kind of pleases me as much as I like stronger stuff. This really pleases me. I don't know how. I suppose it's real because they're just gathering facts. They're not, trying to lean either way for any type of reason. But it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, well, it can
Mm.
be looked up for anyone listening. The Nature Scientific Reports, February
Yeah.
2005, out of Sydney University. You just look it up and look up their cannabis research there, and you'll be able
Yeah.
to dig through it and find it all yourself. But so the average THC was actually 8.99%, so even under, but they
Right.
rounded it up to 9%. And the other thing is that they found was the levels of heavy metals like arsenic and lead and even pest residue were of negligible levels.
Right. Wow.
Did they measure any other cannabinoids or simply just the THC? Because I'd be curious to know if any of the other cannabinoids were higher than, say, the
Yeah.
medicinal shelf stuff you can find.
Yep.
Well, the only other one that I know they measured, which was CBD, which was typically very low in all their samples. Under
Yeah,
a
they need
point.
to look. I
Yeah.
can't wait till we start looking at the other compounds and the other things like that.
Oh yeah, so
I
we can
don't like.
dive a bit deeper and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because that 9%, there's a reason we're preferring that. That's because there's a trade. In my opinion, there is a trade-off there. When you've got less of that, you have more room for other things.
I
Whole
so
plant
agree with
medicine.
you. I
Yeah.
so agree with you on that level. Absolutely. Like, this is good to me politically. Like, this is just confirming, what is your problem? Why aren't we allowed to grow our own?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it just shows that
1000%.
everyone is responsible. That
Yeah.
that does grow it at home. They're not, trying to blow each other's heads off or
Yeah.
do crazy things. They're just trying to grow their favorite plant. Grow their
Yeah.
medicine, and 8.99%. That's honestly a good number. Like I feel
Yep.
actually there's a lot of people out there that should be very proud because
Yeah.
likely with some good soil and good indoor conditions, you're
Yeah.
going to get a good spectrum like of other cannabinoids in that plant. Like irrespective of
Make it.
how high they're gonna be, you're definitely gonna get more than something that's got 41% THC or whatever, some of these
Yeah.
places.
Exactly, your terpene expressions and things like that,
Yep.
and other cannabinoids shining through, and make for a
We
whole different experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
we also have like another thing is the home grower has access to damn near the same equipment that the rest of the industries do and stuff like that. So there's no, unlike certain ag industries and things of that nature, we, for the most part, we can get high quality lights. We can give the high quality they need. Where there's a lot of industries that can't do that. So yeah, that's I think one of the reasons too is our access to these lights.
Mm.
Very true. Yeah, some of the lights that I was reviewing, like for this episode, I was like, this is crazy. I can imagine, 10 years ago, they kind of got in front of this technology, like what they can do now with just simple diodes and the accessibility that they've made to them, to these other brands is,
Yeah, it's usually cake kept.
yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah.
it feels like the opposite of the graphics card industry at the moment. Like looking at
Oh
like
yeah.
or what Nvidia and all the DRAM manufacturers are doing, it feels like we get the opposite in the hydroponics game because like there's someone out there putting the goods out and not hiding it, and the competition I think is probably where that comes in, and everyone wants to do better because we as a community push them to do better.
Yeah.
That's very true, and a lot of, I guess, brand owners are, growers or in the industry or have been, or there's a reason you choose this industry. It's generally not for money.
But the demand is there, and that says a lot for there to be, competing brands, which just makes the products better
Yeah,
and
you're
all
right.
of that. The demand's out there.
If
Oh
people
yeah,
weren't
that's
buying them, you wouldn't be, competing.
Yeah.
Exactly right. And I
Yeah.
mean, they're even bringing in. I believe there's a young gentleman out of Germany that has just completed the first ever, like, university degree purely focused on cannabis and lighting associated with it. He works for a large lighting company, and
Wow.
yeah, he's very knowledgeable. So I believe he's like the first person to actually get a cannabis specific degree. I believe close to in history. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah, I just wanted to add it's
Yeah.
now even breaking into sort of the academic fields where he can officially say that he holds it. I'll have to get the name for him of him at some point, but yeah, we have people that can now officially claim educations in cannabis specific things, and it's starting with the lighting.
And sounds like they're putting a lot of their time and effort into specific, which is going to make them
UV's where
extremely
they're
knowledgeable in
really,
that area.
yeah, UV's where a lot of people are, especially this particular group, are looking at advancing things. That's where a lot of the focus is, as Timmy was saying. Yeah.
These lights have brought a whole new world into growing where your average Joe can grow something really spectacular. And it's taken care of a lot of stuff that we, as young growers, would have struggled with, and yeah, worn the frustration, with the results. But it's made it a very friendly world to dive into.
Yeah, the lights are the reason I got into it
Oh,
now when I did.
yep,
The before that, I first tried to grow one about 13 years ago, and I just had got some equipment. I got to go. I'm just like, it's just not there yet. It's just simply
yep,
not there for me to be wanting to do this in a tiny
yep,
little unit where I was. But as soon as I found out that the lights are where they're at now and everything's where it's at, it's a whole different game now. Completely different game
yep,
now.
yeah.
It is, and
It's
there's
worth
lots
your
of,
hard
like
work.
Timmy was saying, there's a wide range of lighting available, even from your hydro stores and things like that. Now you can walk in and get some really good
Yeah,
entry level cost lighting that
yeah.
rivals that of your eBay choices.
Especially
And,
on like deals. Look for
mm,
Boxing Day sales and things like that.
oh,
You'll get some incredible deals from grow stores and hydro stores
yeah.
and things like that at those times.
Yeah, and
I'm
walk in
even,
and speak to them. Don't be scared.
mm, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm even blown away just seeing these ground lights, and watching someone use them and put them in the tent and
The under
Under
canopies.
canopy. Mm.
yeah, like that, just like that's exciting stuff, and to be able to watch how it's actually changing, how the plant grows and the benefits of it. Yeah,
It was laughed at first, which is very amusing. It used to get made fun of, and now suddenly
yeah,
everybody wants to get that under canopy lighting. But that's that progress
yeah,
in the lighting, I guess.
yeah,
It
yeah.
may not
Well,
have been worth it before, 100 watt or 200 watt light under your canopy. You're better off just setting up another space or something like that.
I don't
Yeah.
know. You put a couple of those and put a couple against the walls. That used to
Yep.
work. You just didn't show anyone because, yes, you got laughed at. It
Yeah,
was a
not
method
laughing
to my
now.
madness, though.
I remember seeing a setup back in the day that had like the ceramic metal halide. I think they're called like the big tubes. Like
Yep.
not your veg light. Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong thing, like a CFL. Those 100 watt, 10,400K kind of UV lights. people just sticking them into the middle of their canopy because they ran so cool that they wouldn't damage the
Yeah,
plants. Like, they're
compact
only, like,
compact fluorescent lighting. Yeah.
that's the one,
Ah,
yeah, and,
okay.
that was quite the technology, and I saw so many people knock it, and I tried it one day, and I was like, "This is the actual goods. This is, like, the beginning of those UV bars and, like,
Yeah.
the infinity ion frames and things like that." Like,
Yeah, I ran a
it's,
couple of full CFL grows back in the day. So
Mm. I love a good fluorescent light for growing a seedling.
yeah,
Getting
but
a
you could
bean up.
those they also had, different spectrums too. So you had
Yeah.
your 5,000-ish K, and then you had your like 2.7 K. So you had your reds and your blues. So you could swap them out for
Yeah.
flower and yeah.
Yes.
And they were cool to
Yeah.
touch. They didn't burn your hands and things like that. So
Yeah. That's different from the
you had to
old
get a bit
days.
creative though with how you wired them up.
yeah.
Uh,
Go to the op shop and pull apart a few lamps and things like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
And get familiar with it.
They should be happy the industry's at the point it is because there's less house fires from this shit.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
I've seen the way some people stack their power packs is a bit scary. So
Oh.
yeah.
I'm incredibly conscious when it comes to wiring and the power and everything like that, but that comes from years of having like 1,000-watt heaters in big fish tanks. You learn to be very careful with power after a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah, there's no room for error
Yes,
with
no, you get zapped a couple. You get zapped once, and that's that.
you learn.
You have a big fish
Uh,
that breaks a heater in the tank. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
stingrays love to get up under them, and
Yeah, turtles are good for it too.
yeah, I bet.
All right, so
Nice.
let's dive back into some of these things. I want to dive back into explaining what some of these terms mean for our listeners, because we might be dropping some terms here that they might not understand. So we've got, say, PPFD, we've got PAR, and we've got DLI are the three main ones I guess we'd talk about when it comes to lighting. Timmy, do you want to have a dive on and explain some of them?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just looking over my notes for DLI, and I think it's another like good indicator of the unit that you're getting, and it's, daily amount of photons that it's going to be exposed to, and how that interacts with your soil, like what type of medium you can most benefit from for your fixture. Because sometimes you'll end up with medium lag if you start overloading the plant systems and there's not enough available nutrients because everything's going so quickly. You need something that has a ridiculously high, cation exchange or a consistent refreshing of those cations in the soil, which is just your base nutrients and how they balance in the soil is a part of defining the cation, and then the cation exchange capacity is how
Mm,
much that soil can exchange.
you can
Now,
exchange. So you're looking at, say, like PPFD is, say, your speed, it's your accelerator pedal, and your DLI would be your gas tank.
yes, that's definitely a good way to put it. And look, it always, I guess, you're looking for. Don't mind me. Just,
No, you're right.
I just had a complete mind blank. But essentially, you're looking to balance the workhorse. And
Yes.
you're not just going for brightness, but you're going on how those plants are going to contribute in it. So it's not worth busting out, massive PPFDs if you can't actually utilize that light, because then it just becomes hot spots on the plant. And unless you have perfect airflow, you're not going to mitigate those hot spots on the plant. And
And that
And it
same
can,
PPFD, sorry, Tink,
you're
might
right.
like will respond differently in soil to cocoa to hydro, is what you're saying too.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Soil has a lot of organic buffers in there, and there is a lot of available nutrients. But once those run out, the breakdown and exchanges of those just from the bacteria and the chemical kind of degradation of the rock phosphates is a lot slower than what, say, a deep water culture can refresh the available nutrients from a tub. And we'll see things like pH and EC drop in the tub as that recycles around as the plant drinks it out. But that's a lot more manageable and easily kind of fixed process, for the plant. If we can have lights matched in with what we're going for, how confident are we we're going to like knock this one out of the park? Well, maybe soil, or maybe mitigating the aeration of that soil and having more frequent waters rather than kind of relying on a large bag. Maybe that's a better application for your light now, because as you're dialing in that environment, it's just going to be a constant battle to catch up. And because of the slow process of soil, sometimes, especially under LEDs, you'll end up with like calcium or kind of nutrient mobility issues because of things dissipating in the soil before the soil can actually reproduce it, but it's still holding a lot of other ions. So I recommend, like, if you're going into the LED lights and you're going for high U moles of PPFD in the actual area, that you switch over to something more like coco or even a deep water culture hydroponic system.
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Before
'cause
we go
some-
any further, sorry, could I just what's DLI and PPFD actually stand for? Could we just elaborate on that a little bit? Like, what's the actual word? So PPFD and
correct.
DLI. Timmy?
So photosynthetic photon flux density. I was like, all right, I need to pronounce this now, and I always
right.
stuff that up.
And
And
we have
daily light integral is
Yep.
DLI. So it's talking about the measure of the total amount of photosynthetically active radiation, which is the PAR.
Yep. And what is PAR?
beautiful.
Exactly that.
Yeah, photosynthetically active radiation.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I just figured we'd give a bit of meaning to the actual word instead of just throwing them around.
You
'cause I'm
just
not sure if
educated
they-
me.
Thank you for that, Timmy.
Yeah, no, I'm serious. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there.
No, you're right, definitely. That's good. I like it.
And that was good because that made a huge amount of sense to me. Absolutely. I've
Yeah.
noticed that the difference in soil then versus going onto a loop system definitely made sense, the how it can get stagnant if your light's too intense, how that's so relevant. It's not
Your
just
light,
turn your light flat out and then deal with everything else. It's all got to be, a holistic attitude, and
that's
work in
right.
harmony with each
Because your
other.
light
Yeah.
can ask too much from your soil, and then you can get,
Yeah.
to a certain
Yep.
point and everything just collapses, and you're like, what's going on? And I need to feed more. And it's like, no, that's
Yeah.
not what's going on. It's you've run out of microbes in your soil. And
Yeah. You need to lighten it up and let it, have
Actually,
time.
oh, sorry about that. I've got a bit of a delay here. I'm not trying to cut anybody
Yeah.
off.
no, jump in, mate. Go.
Yeah, go for it, please.
Could you elaborate a bit on that, please, Timmy? That part interested me. How you said the soil is reacting different, especially how you use the calcium as an example. Is it some sort of like agitation, sort of nutrient agitation? What's going on there that's causing that? And how can I run things heavier and higher in very nutrient dense living soil and not run into those issues? Because that explains some things, and I'm curious about that.
So look, something like a blue mat kind of water dripper and kind of increasing the aeration in your living soil with like something like perlite or
Mm.
vermiculite, like just to give it that slight bit of extra structure. Maybe mix in a bit more of a coco coir medium rather than like say a sphagnum peat moss. Like kind of balance those out to get a higher kind of surface area in the actual soil, and then that'll allow the water to move through that living soil a bit quicker. And I mean, I know you might. You'll likely be sniffing the dirt. So you better smell the mycology that's going to be in that soil, and it's going to be going mental. And I
Yeah.
only say this because I know that exact smell, and it's
Yes.
something unique into itself and beautiful. But
Yes.
yeah, look, that's what I would recommend is creating more surface area and opportunities for that water to interact with roots, and then with the water and nutrients to exchange more frequently as it's going down the pot. So
Really well
loosen the
said.
structure and
Yeah.
move the water.
Yeah.
Got it.
Really well
Understood.
said. And that's partly why I like the fabric pots too.
Also explains the autopots.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Like auto pots do also run a fabric pot, and they have a specific brand of fabric pot as well to
Yeah.
run with them. And
Oh, beautiful.
that is
Yeah.
a beautiful system. Like
Yeah. I've
a
seen a
lot
few
of
of
hydro
those
shops
lately.
really push them, and it's definitely for good reason. Like you get some
Mm.
incredible result.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll be going to them next for sure. Autopots, that's my goal.
I think if you want to stick with living soil and you're trying to push to as far as you can possibly push.
Yeah, I just can't keep moving these big pots around. I can't have more of them and move them. They're getting very difficult to move. So the auto pots will make things a bit smaller, but allow that sort of, as Timmy was explaining, that sort of aeration still with the living soil mixes to allow them to the biology to thrive. With the
You
That's
need
right.
wheels on them.
yeah, I
Yeah.
do. I'm gonna put some wheels on them. I put them on a trolley to move around, but that's still over 100 kilos, not including the
Yeah.
plant lifting
It's
full
hard
of
work.
water. So
Yeah.
it is it's more the quietness because I have to do it at like 3 in the morning, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Squeaky wheels. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I found something interesting, but yeah, there's someone local to Queensland makes like a raised, like basically a sub-irrigated planter already on wheels, and it's like in like a tin, like birdie's bed, and it's interesting. Anyway,
Sounds like another episode.
no,
Containers.
yeah.
Mm.
I'm all for. I've got so many different sorts, but yeah.
Yeah, so that's definitely interesting. So it's like soil's awesome, but it doesn't fail loudly like cocoa and hydro. So you don't get the warning signs as much. Whereas cocoa hydro, you've got the less buffering, so you're getting the warning signs.
Yeah.
Mm.
And the issue with hydro is also obviously the water you have to deal with as well. Sometimes you do destroy things.
Yeah, because
Like
when
when
they
it
start drinking,
leaks.
they can start drinking.
With hydro, isn't it all about the water by then? If
Oh, it's
you're doing
pretty much
hydro?
all about the water in every setup. I
Yeah.
reckon. Like even what you put in your living soil can matter at the end of the day. If you're putting something in there that disrupts the biology, like the chlorine they put in tap water in town, that can really kind of damage the subtle processes that is the difference between 70% and 95%.
Yeah.
I more meant like water leaking. You got to really
Oh,
want to make sure you have like float valves and things like that when you're using a recirculating or a hydro setup or something. If you have floorboards, you're not
yeah, you
careful.
don't want leakage.
Well, we all have had that rite of passage. Like I've flooded everything, so I reckon. Like I just had little Vietnam-esque flashbacks to some of mine. I'm like, oh, that is a lot of water.
Yeah.
And it's so nutrient-rich water too, so it wants to get in there. And then how I used to do it when I used a little bit when I did a cocoa system was it had biology in it as well, like kelp and some things like that. So it was super active, super nutrient-dense water, and it was leaking in a place I didn't know until I knew. And by then it was already too late. There was life in the walls.
Yep. Well, I'm a Synganic cocoa grower, so I know all about that, mate. Yep.
Yeah, you got to be careful. That stuff can get really potent. That cocoa Synganic grows. It's incredible. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, awesome stuff though. All right, let's keep moving on with our lighting. So, so what happens when we hit the high ceilings of PPFD?
We end up with a burnout. We end up just destroying our entire environment, whether it's through various kind of issues that can pop up. So if you start running too much DLI, as we've been talking in soil, and you don't have the nutrient turnover in there to kind of work with it, you'll end up just running that plant to burn out. And
Yep.
say if you have high PPFD and you got a low CO2 environment because the plant's so healthy, it's just drinking it out, and you're not getting your refreshes with your fan, then that can lead to huge energy inefficiencies where the plant just focuses on other aspects of the energy that it's making rather than building itself up and increasing its cellular structure. Goes into almost like a fight or flight. And I think there's a statement: you don't break plants, you break balance. I like that statement.
Yep. There's another good one that I reckon that goes along well with that is leaves don't lie, growers do.
Very good point. Yeah, everyone's had those 2-3 pound plants, and I don't see it.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
touching on that, so when you push them so hard, so they just drench the substrate in the exudates, is that what you're saying? And it just overloads the biology. Is there a way to really push it and sort of balance it still in soil, or is it one of those things you're sort of doomed to deal with
It's
in
one of
living
those
soil?
things that like you can obviously find ways to mitigate that. Which I mean, like, look, well, I
CO2?
didn't always end up with like the best roots in the game, but because there's some dudes out there that have the root magic touch, I swear, and
Oh yeah.
you know, having that type of environment is also like a better, more available cation exchange because the plant's in every single area that it can be without any fail. And that can also contribute to the entire environment and how the plant reacts into high PPFDs and higher CO2s, and it's all of its biology is working overtime. So yeah, absolutely. I think there's definitely ways to mitigate and to follow that kind of pathway up for a living soil grower, even a dense one. You can likely just work with different plant reactions to to just absorb it,
Fine. Yeah.
help it. Maybe a different strain, maybe something that's been bred to have a bit more, Australian sun in the outback. I reckon some of those ones we're talking about the other week with Dragon from the mid coast, I reckon they can probably handle some good living soil indoors.
Mm.
Yeah, I like I'm trying the reason I ask these questions is this run now that I've sort of got my larger indoor pot styled in, this run's feeling really good for them. And the second, third run, that's always the better runs. And I really want to push them. I have the equipment to push them. I have the time. I have the means. I really want to see if I can compete with number wise and quality wise with, especially the number wise with some of these hydroponic grows or these cocoa grows just by having such a rich, really, or like, you know, nutrient dense organic living soil. So that's why I'm asking these questions. It's something I'm
Look,
curious about.
I think it's also this is like the perfect time for me to define that. I think just exactly what you said there with your nutrient dense, very alive living soil. That's like you're already winning hands down. Like I don't care if somebody's in hydro getting 3 pound a plant. If you are nailing in and putting as much focus and care and
Yeah.
love into your soil as mud is, you're going to blow it out of the park in terms of quality versus any hydro plant.
Your terpene
Yeah.
expression, your cannabinoid
Yeah,
expression, and
it's like a
density within
French
that
baker.
plant matter. Yep.
Yeah, you're like a French baker when you dial in that rich living soil. Like, yeah, at the end of the day, and that's always going to be a bigger priority for me than just raw yield. Is how can I make this the most alive grow possible so my plant is happy. It's mimicked the outdoor conditions, but I've kept it in a great environment. Well, there's nothing really that beats a living soil.
Yeah, well said,
Yeah,
mate. So
thank you.
I'd like to just put it into some quick notes. I'd say soil rewards restraint, cocoa rewards consistency, and hydro rewards precision.
It's a good way of putting it,
Yeah.
especially that precision for hydro. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, because that's something that soil, especially you mud, like you're trying to push it as hard as you can, but sometimes just dialing it back just that little bit, and you're gonna perform slightly better in soil. I'm
Yeah,
talking light-wise anyway,
yeah,
particularly
they're
at this. Yeah, sorry.
yeah, sorry, it's my bad too. They're I'm genuinely shocked how much light these plants can take in this living soil because I've heard of people really pushing it in a good hydro, really, as you say, really dialed in, really locked in, precise hydro setup. But these girls are, I'm not meaning to just because of how I've had to set things up and move things around. These girls are in early veg, some of these, and they're getting hit with over 1,000. And they're praying and not like they're just sitting there. Yeah, I've got to lower it soon once I get in there tonight. But it's interesting how they sort of interact with light when you give them different scenarios. That's just
Mm.
yeah.
I like it. And so if we were to be looking at pushing, say if we're maxing out our PPFD and our cocoa and hydro grows, Timmy, would you recommend then starting to look at implementing CO2 to help push just that little bit further?
Yeah, absolutely. I think CO2 does always make like an impact into the grow, but I don't think it's something that look, a lot of us, don't have the opportunity or the benefit to have, a completely air conditioned, secure like environment to work in. And a lot of people that I met, when I was working at hydro shops was, people with a fan, one fan sticking out the window, one fan drawing in from the hallway, and that's just how they would do their CO2. And you would try to teach them about the air exchanges per hour, and keeping the air everything clean and more tidy. I think a lot of those things come before, I guess, the upgrade to CO2. And when we're upgrading to CO2, it's just going along those same lines. Like, in a hydro setup with coco, your plant could be drinking liters of water a day compared to very slowly drinking it from soil, or drinking 6 liters a day in a hydroponics recirculating system, just absolutely drinking it. And
Mhm. But if you're
yeah,
in
I
that
think
hydro and it's absolutely drinking, maybe you're not stacking as well as you should be, or something like that. So maybe CO2
Yeah.
is going to increase because photosynthesis needs CO2 as a raw input.
yeah,
So if
absolutely.
you're feeding it as much light as you can, and you're feeding it as flat out, and you've got your nutrients levels right up there, your EC is really high, and you're pushing things, you're going to need that CO2 in there as well. But then again, I'm talking that's quite high level stuff. So I'm just going one extreme to the other here, just so everyone's sort of aware.
Yeah, like, because as soon as you move out of those temperature ranges, like for your VPD calculations and things like that, that dictate the amount of CO2 and energy the plant's going to actually want to make, and the difference can be a couple of degrees, and suddenly you're outside that range, and no matter how many bags of CO2 you have in there, you still have disrupted the process that would have benefited it. So yeah, it's definitely some very high end kind of systems that end up in situations like that, and those guys are usually already got sensors, like an AC Infinity AI sensor, or a CO2 regulator on the different controllers that come with, like, Mars Hydro and HLG, that monitor these types of things, because they are an integrated part into those lighting systems. So I definitely think CO2 is on the lowest list of 95% of growers that would listen to this, because a lot of us are
Definitely.
just doing it how we do it. And the guys that are looking for 1,500 ppm have put $4,000 into lights, and $4,000 into air conditioners,
Yeah.
and lung rooms, and all the good stuff, all the good stuff. And power to them, because I love that. That is like my Ferrari of things, is seeing a well set up grow room.
Mm.
And then I think CO2 is a more accurate environment. But I'd be looking at so many other things that I could probably talk for an entire week on them before realistically coming to CO2.
Yeah,
100%.
beautiful. Well done. Good put. Yeah, well put. Sorry.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's one of those things that it's right at the end when you look at your setup and you're like, okay, everything's perfect. I'm sick of it being perfect. What can I play with? I think that's exactly when you introduce a CO2. It's another thing to just get that extra little percentage out, and just to zone that growing a little bit more. I think, yeah, that's more of a professional side of the hobby.
Yeah, that's
It's a
sort of
hard
what I
one to
was
explain.
touching
Yeah.
on there. Like, that's like once you think you've sort of maxed out all your limits, you've pushed everything as far as it can go. That's when you'd be looking at something like that to try and just get that little bit more out of it. Yeah.
I can hear it's a lot. I hear it's a lot of fun though. Like once everything else is dialed in, that's when you can start, yeah, really playing with CO2 and pushing some of those bloom boosters really late on.
And for someone who is just really starting to understand this stuff, I remember you mentioning, Tim, about just turning your of extraction fan off at periodical times can increase the CO2 in your tent. Is that right? Did I hear you right?
I think I would have been talking about. So one of the things I used to love doing was getting in like a grow environment with the boys, and talking about like mental health, and stuff
Yep.
that we were struggling with at the time. And I wondered, because it got that to that musky kind of air after a while, because there's a few of us in this area. And
Yep.
um and I was like, I wonder what the actual impact is on CO2 in the room, because I didn't have the fans going crazy or anything like that, so we could talk in the environment. The door open, so it's not like there wasn't air coming in already. But in that tight environment, I think it was 30 minutes, and you can increase noticeably the CO2 in a 1.5 tent, just a single person. And if you got two or
Yeah,
three people kind of in that same area, or it's talking and singing to your babies is going to give them a passive little
yeah.
CO2 boost.
This is
Yeah,
what
that's
I
right.
love hearing. Yeah,
Yeah, opening
yeah,
that tent and just talking to them, spending
yeah,
time with them, chatting away to them while you're giving them a little bit of a prune, and
yeah.
you're fussing
Oh,
around in there. They love it.
it's an antidepressant. Like, it really helped
Yeah.
me through a lot of tough
Oh,
times of
big
doing
time.
exactly that.
Yeah, big
How
time.
much impact would you say the CO2 released from living soils would have? Would it be worth, say, in my setup where I've got those larger pots and whatnot, as Tink said, turning off like an intake fan for a couple minutes on a timer each day and letting some of that build up just to give it some food, or do you think it's kind of negligible with the amount it would put off?
Look, I mean, honestly, if your temperatures are managed, and it's not going, crazy in there without the fans on, I can't see that being a specific issue. But if you've got your air exchanges dialed in, it's probably still going to be a more consistent CO2 saturation from just cycling in that air consistently, rather
Right.
Right.
than because as soon as you turn off that fan, all of that CO2 refreshing stops. And while there is like CO2 from the breakdown of the organic matter in the soil,
The
it's
plants are
it's
probably
also
going to eat that a lot faster than it's going to be
yeah.
exchanged.
Yeah.
Right. That's the idea anyway, I suppose. You probably don't want it to be off gassing too much up into the atmosphere. You want to sort of keep it in the soil anyway. So I guess having that constant air exchange would encourage that as well. Yeah, thanks for answering that.
Mm. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, now let's talk about the canopies. So we always say, we always are striving for an even canopy. Now, PPFD is a good reason why we're striving for an even canopy. Can you explain why, Timmy?
So essentially, the way that LEDs work in this new generation is they're all an angled kind of chipset. Like, they have different algorithms for these light manufacturers. And they'll go through and try their best to map out based off the lumens output, which is the brightness and light output of the actual diode. And they'll aim, to get that even canopy, because if you don't have, like, leaves moving in the Vietnamese jungle type of moving in your plant area, you're going to get burnt if you have hot spots. So making sure that your canopy is even, making sure that the light hanging is even is a crucial part of this setup. Like, monitoring where the actual manufacturer says to put the light at above the canopy, and following that up during the actual grow is also integral on not disrupting a lot of the plant energy production processes by creating hotspots. And
That's
it's why
right,
I
because
always recommend white tents too, because diffusing light is better than deflecting.
this is true. But hotspots, you sort of give your overworked roots, so you work your roots in that particular for that particular section of plant are working really, really hard. And then you might have a shaded section if your canopy's not even, and then those roots are going to be underfed because they're not being given the demand from the light.
Yeah, microclimates. Yeah, got to be careful of.
Yeah, same plant, multiple stress levels.
And
There's
and look,
always, sorry,
sorry, no, Jake.
there's always a couple that want to like touch the sky. It doesn't matter how many times you stick them down or bend them or put them in a netting, they still just want to reach up and kiss the light. Sorry, that was a bit of
No,
useless
it's
information.
a good bit of information, because sometimes that also helps you identify the branches that could be topped, could be bent, pinched and
Yep.
bent to a bit of high stress or low stress training, because that area is getting nutrients. Well, if I tie that down and break the atypical dominance of the actual plant based off it trying to shoot up, then maybe I can utilize more plant nodes on that actual one big shoot to grow more, flowering heads by, when the dominance gets broken, it'll prioritize shooting up rather than shooting itself up like a Christmas tree.
That's so true. It really is valuable information, whatever it's doing. Yeah.
It's a good observation.
Yep.
Yeah, well, like Timmy said, that's the perfect opportunity to come in and give that a pinch, or to give that
Yep.
stem a little bit of a roll and introduce some high stress training, and then try and
Yep.
encourage those nutrient pathways and that draw to come up from somewhere else as well, and to produce new growth or stronger growth in other areas.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Love this chat. Good.
Mm. It's making
So,
way more sense to me than I thought it would. So kudos to you guys.
Must
That's
admit,
good.
light is my weak point. Definitely one of my weak
Mm.
points. And actually, Timmy's brought a lot more things to my attention than I first that I first thought about. So this is something I'll take a bit
Right.
away from this to look into, especially the way Timmy you explain the diodes and the way they have different algorithms and angling and things like that. I had no
Mm.
idea it was like everyone tried to do their own little formula and whatnot. That's interesting. I need to look into that.
Yeah, you'll see that a lot on like the heat footing maps. So like I just brought up the Mars Hydro LM301H, which is the Samsung Evolution diodes, and how they've mapped it out, and some of their centers, which is where you're going to want the most of your airflow fluctuating your leaves around. They're sitting at 1683, 1643, 1644, like a huge PPFDs coming out of the center of those lights because the the active part of the radio's spectrum that the plants absorb for photosynthesis is heat as well.
Yeah.
And when you have all of that heat ballast in the center there, mitigating that just it becomes a bit more of a challenge than just angling different diodes. And that's why I think research is something that I really kind of lent heavily on when I was moving into this space is how do these diodes reflect on the floor? Do I need to hang a second one next to this or a lighter light because the edges are only 780 ppfd? And I think that's a big variable in the lights and how we should be kind of looking at them for our spaces too, because there's cheaper options and there's guys that have put $2 billion into developing lights. And while there are definitely some smaller use cases, like I've seen people in local communities in South Brisbane actually making lights for themselves out of chipboards that they've imported that have these diodes already in them and getting even better results again. So,
Hmm.
at the end of the day, community research and working together, like I would love to see a specifically Australian manufactured and, you know, um, developed light coming out of here because we need to kind of invest in that
yeah, here.
technology for
Yep.
glass
Yeah.
houses and things like that that can benefit from both in an actual reasonable kind of environment where someone could have a glass house, at the back of their house and throw a couple of lights in there and get the best of everything and grow some truly unique living soil kind of plants. Then we're just going to be relying on these massive conglomerates, and we may as well
Well,
kind of utilize
I'm
their
going to touch on
technology.
someone at the moment who is probably, probably leading a lot in this space at the moment. In my opinion, would be that dude out of Ireland, Migro.
Yep. I know who you're
Yes,
talking about.
Yeah, so he's doing a lot of research on lighting, and if you jump on and have a look at some of the stuff he does, he compares a lot of the brand name lighting and then their lighting spectrums and their outputs, and
He helped me very early on. He does comparisons to inside of tents with chilies and things of that nature to give you visual representations as well.
Excellent.
it's why I got obsessed with the HLG Scorpion series because I remember when they first released the Dablo 450 watt little kind of 4x2
Yep.
light. That just blew.
sorry, mate, we
I think we
lost you
might have
there
lost
for a
him.
minute. Go again.
Oh, we might have lost him for good.
Oh no, we're gonna have to wait for him to jump back in. Yeah, but talking on
The green
different.
photo.
There
Oh,
it is.
here he is. He's back.
Back.
All right, we lost you for a bit there, mate. You might have to start back at the
Oh no.
Diablo board.
Oh dear. Well, please know for everyone listening that I was rambling on there about lights. Don't worry, and I'm not going to I'm not going to leave you miss out on it either. So when they came out with the new Diablo boards, 3-4 years ago, that was a revolution. That was like a combination of different, a German and Korean, Japanese, manufacturers coming together to make these intricate components to then result in a chipboard that ended up in, the medicinal and recreational industries in America and Europe that can do this stuff openly. And they developed the way that they're seeded to a light that's everyone's still trying to replicate, in my opinion, is a HLG light. And there's some kings in the game that are furthering that development on, like Grandmaster LEDs and Mammoth lighting, and guys that are
Over
into,
the two I was about to mention who are doing lots of things with lighting, like
like the
pest
anti-pest.
management.
And that's a whole new section that a lot of the facilities don't care about. And I think that's something that there is a change because of people like Grandmaster coming out into the industry and saying, no, well, why aren't you guys doing it better? And I think that's the competition we're now seeing across all of these brands is in the same time he's growing up and blowing up, they've also realized that they now need to start doing better. And look, I was looking at a Viper Spectra light for $600 that had 850 to 1,050 umoles in a square meter, and a reasonably efficient PPFD spread with it's not as efficient as the other lines, so you're probably going to spend an extra 10-15% on energy, but
Mm.
for $600, what a great start into this industry, with a full Samsung LM301H spectrum.
Well, the
Um,
Viper Spectra, I think it's KS3000E, is for a 3x3 tent that Migros recommends that as his top pick for light because it's the perfect balance between draw and everything else.
yeah, I definitely agree with that too, because they've come a long way from blurples, and to be kind of fitting into that space where someone like Migro will recommend them. It definitely means that for $600 they're really kind of on the money there.
I've got
Yeah,
a
and
quick
then I'll go.
question. Sorry, it's about should you aim for spread, so even spread? Should you aim for an evenness of PPFD across the board, or should you aim for a higher output more towards the middle? So I use lights that have very high output sort of all around, but I still miss out on the edges, so I have to put lights, closer to each other. What should you look at getting more? What would be better for the plant?
Look, I guess if you had a light that had an intense middle, I would recommend getting a white diffusing type of tent rather than something that's going to throw off like high angular photons, like that can pierce the cell walls and damage them from a diamond kind of mylar tent. And then also training the canopy lower, so then you can have that light at its full intensity, and the things in the middle and the things on the outside are still going to be further away from the light. But usually, a lot of these 730, 800 watt units, they want 16 inches between the plant and the actual fixture itself. So training that down, especially if you know that, I mean, look, it also wouldn't be something I would recommend for yourself because you've got an awesome environment, you've got a really active bioactive soil that's churning over, and the right amount of airflow. So you probably don't have to worry a heap about that, and you're just going to get a bigger result in the center. But we definitely want the outsides, which are carrying the weight. Everything that's in the center is just standing up, kind of on a stilt, whereas the other stuff out the edge is doing a bicep curl.
Which just
Yeah,
brings
so
it exactly brings us
even it
sorry
out.
to back to your even canopy type deal. So you want the even PPFD to match that even canopy.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question there, Mud?
Yeah, so basically, all I was trying to what I was trying to find out is like, some cheap lights you find they have a really hot center and a bit like pushing 1,000, but their edges are only at about 300, 200, and then if you're in a larger tent, you have to get multiple of them to keep those edges sort of better. Are you better off trying to find a light that may not be as powerful in the center, but you get more even growth? I'm sort of trying to figure out what sort of light, because there are definitely difference in standards compared to balance in light spread to hot centers.
In
Look,
my opinion, go.
no, Rude, no. But I've been yammering away. Please say your piece.
No, I was going to say, I think you'd definitely be well more invested to look at something that has a more even spread across the board, especially if you're a soil grower. If you're a cocoa or hydro grower, you can sort of get away with, chucking some more in and feeding it more light because you manage that light probably a bit more better. But yeah, in a rough sense, I would always recommend definitely going for something with more even spread because you're going to benefit more in yield and terpene production from even lighting across the board and all of your plant drawing the same. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, and especially, I suppose, especially when you top your plant and train it, and we've sort of spread those hormones out in the, apical dominance. You probably want everything to get that more even spread around it. I suppose in the older ways, people used to train things when, hey, maybe not at all. You want that heat in the center to get those big top coals, but yeah, these days I suppose things are different.
Yeah, they're growing Christmas trees, so yeah, exactly. It is
I
all in
still
the
do,
center of the plant.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, and it's why I also went with something like, I would always recommend guys that were making this kind of step to like HLG, to Lumatech, to AC Infinity, things that companies that have put, I guess a lot of R&D development in with the cannabis facilities, just because in America it's the easiest place for them to do their research and development, in a lot of states.
Spot on, Timmy.
And they will give you the best uniformity for your money. So while
So my budget tip to that, sorry, is to look for bar lights. If you're stuck on something that has to be on a cheap end of the budget, look for your bar lights, because that way you can still going to get a lot more uniformity than, say, just a panel. Sorry.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
more stretch over your tent too, won't you? More cover more space.
Correct. Yeah. You're going to get a more even spread across the canopy of your tent. So you could have an 800-watt bar light and an 800-watt panel, and like Mud was saying, that panel's going to be blasting most of that into the center of your tent. But if you're looking at a bar light, you've got generally those bars are spread across the canopy and across the space of the tent.
Yep. Yep.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like bar lights is where it's at for tent growing. Quantum boards is just too directed. I mean, unless you're paying something ridiculous for like a HLG kind of Scorpion Diablo, the new generation of that, which is $2,000. Then you're getting like a very well developed quantum board, but it's still set up as a bar light kind of function with three separate diodes, spacings over that entire 1.5 square meter area. Like
Coming back to those algorithms, like you were saying, that
Yeah.
they've put into practice over the years to get the same or similar or better results from a quantum board than a cheaper series of bar light. But research is key.
Oh, absolutely, and it's a lot easier to cool a bar light too. If you're already kind of struggling with temperatures and you're switching over from
point.
high intensity, bulbs, switching to a bar light, like if you're having real hard time, is going to be your best option over anything, because you could spend $2,000 on a quantum board, get the bee's knees, but if that thing's running the VPD too high because of its intensity and because of its heat, and then you're pretty much just back at square one again.
Chasing your tail, yeah.
So out of it all, it really does come down to balance about everything to get the optimal grow. Everything working in harmony with each other.
Yeah, let's just go put it outside, Tink. I think that's the best way for us to get optimal
Well,
grow.
you've got to have
That
the
is
sun.
the best way, because
sun's
everyone's trying to
good.
replicate the sun.
Yeah.
And we simply can't. We can't get that sort of radiation ever. I don't think in a confined space in that way for it to be able to be utilized. It's just so much radiation to be able to handle.
Yeah, and things like the UV that the 30-watt bars that we already have in there, or can add to there. That's I think what 17% of the UV that the just outdoor sun gives the outdoor plant. So
Wow.
and also stacking those in a tight environment. Like look, I definitely have a HLG UVA 30 bar here, and I use it. When I do run things, but at the end of the day,
UVA and UVB bars. Yep.
nothing will compare. Like, and if you do start getting the levels of UVA and B from the sun inside your tent, then that is not a great place for you to be working without.
That's kind of what I was getting at.
slapping.
Exactly.
Yeah, you definitely want to be slip slop slapping. Yeah, you want like two
Your
pairs of
eyes,
sunglasses on, and yeah.
I have to wear sunnies anyway. Well, special coloured lenses because I get migraines from LEDs.
But yeah, when you're
I'm s-
talking like UVA and UVB, you shouldn't really be in that environment when they're on anyway. They're very supplemental lighting, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like if you're running bars of them.
I've heard of
heavy duty.
the pest control thing I'd like to touch on as well. Timmy mentioned there's new lights coming out for pest control.
That's
I
UVC.
I use a light for pest control. It's a UV light, but I don't believe it's what you're mentioning. It's not designed like that. It's to attract insects, and it's like an
The
old
yellow,
catcher. No, it's
yellow
blue
glow.
or
Oh,
purple.
the
It's like
blue. Oh, okay,
really
like
deep. I
zappers.
don't think I should look at it. No, exactly, and it sounds like a zapper when I turn it on.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
And
old
it
bug zapper site. Yep.
yeah.
but it doesn't zap them and attracts them to a sticky thing. But anyway, I was digressing a bit there. The using lights as pest control, you can use your normal light a little bit as pest control. Rue taught me a very nifty trick just the other day. I had an issue with I fed too much starch with a lab or something like that. I made a mistake and I ended up with mold mites. Now, this because these pots had been outside and everything like that. I was freshly planting into them, and I didn't really, I couldn't identify them correctly, and I eventually did. And a simple fix of just drying things out and blasting the plants with lights for a couple of days, they could handle it. They
Yeah.
didn't like it per se, but they could handle it. What couldn't handle it was the mites, and they are
Yeah.
completely gone since then. So you
Brilliant.
can use your light as a form of your
Yeah.
IPM if it comes down to it. They're
That's a
very.
brilliant solution.
It
It
is.
is,
I was
actually.
very,
Yeah.
very happy with recommending that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm glad it worked for you, mate. You know,
Yeah,
you
me
can
too.
only try these things. But yeah, I had a very, very strong feeling that it was going to work because I've had similar issues myself in the past. So
Yeah.
Lesson learned all around. I just wanted to touch on that lights are multifaceted, not just
Yeah.
the light.
yeah, but so you wanted to touch on these UVCs as well, which I wanted to get back to as well because when Timmy mentioned them, I wanted to mention a friend of mine was gifted Milo Grow actually. Was gifted some by Grandmaster, and he's personally said to me that they are a game changer in his personal rooms and the way that he manages pests and his IPM.
What wattage are they?
Oh, they're quite up there. They're, I think they're like
I'd have to
1,000.
blast.
1,000
Oh,
odd watt
jeez.
bars, but
Okay. Fucking
yeah.
hell.
You can buy them individually. I was just having a little bit of a look around. Hydro Hub down in Melbourne.
Where can I source these? These are.
I'll send you the link, but Hydro Hub
Thank
seem
you.
to be the main one who have, like, I guess, the individual UVC bars, and they're like $500 for a pair, which does a 1.5 square meter like tent area, and it comes with two 5-watt bars, so it's 5 watts of UVC.
They're the
Yeah,
Grandmaster LED ones, the Predators.
the Predator IPM light. It's just the
Yep.
individual bars, not the kind of. I know they've got one that has an integrated set of these, if I remember.
Yes,
Is
I
that, I
don't
think,
know
what
if
you're
they're
talking about?
available in Australia. I know the bars are, but I don't know if their big lights are available here.
Either
They
way,
might be.
something
I
to
could be
definitely
wrong.
consider. I'd love to know what else it does. Those different UVs. Those Grandmasters I keep hearing. I really need to try them one day when I can afford to buy a small car's value in a light.
Yeah, I know.
They're worth, from what I've heard, that spectrum tuning is apparently pretty different.
Yeah, well, like I said, from what I've heard personally from Milo, he said that that's an absolute game changer. And
Yeah,
he's
nice.
used some pretty high end stuff. So he's pretty impressed with them. So yeah, I'd like to get my hands on a set too.
Well, they got
think
some
under-
big bars. 1700 watt, 2.8 UMOL LED bar with the integrated UVC bars, $2,500. I think, if somebody had that money, that'd probably be worth it. Honestly.
What's the lifespan on something? Because the issue I have with the UV things is surely they burn out fast. Surely it doesn't last very long.
I think that'd still probably be up there in your 50,000 plus hours, wouldn't you?
Okay.
Say, Timmy?
Yeah, honestly, I reckon, at minimum, kind of 30, 40,000 hours. And like by
Yep.
then, they've usually paid for themselves, and
Yeah, technology's
with
gone
the
good, huh?
advancement, you might get 60, 70.
Wow.
Yeah, that's right. Beautiful.
Oh, here we go. I just found it. So it's this Grow Tarantula Borg Evo V3 is rated for 100,000 hours LED life.
Wow,
There
that's
you
all.
go.
That's good.
Wow. And they have warranties and everything too. They're pretty good, aren't they?
Yeah, I
Oh,
would say
yeah.
that. Look, yeah, they definitely have some decent warranties on them. And I remember, doing claims for different lights, and you really didn't find too many LED manufacturers that you deal with in a day-to-day in a hydro store that are too bad at warranty returns these days, because everybody realizes how important the customer is when we're spending $2,500 on something for our own personal use. We want it to work. Like,
Well, someone
it's
like
still a secondhand
Grandmaster
car.
too, I know they work really closely hand in hand with the community. So they gift out a lot of their lights before the before they release them and things like that to have lots of real-time feedback on them.
Yeah, I hear they've got good customer support too. That's why another reason I want to, like, even just getting questions for their tuning and everything like that off them. But yeah,
So
they're definitely out of reach
sometimes
for
it's-
some of the more
Oh,
average
definitely.
growers.
But sometimes it is worth paying for that high end, you know,
I
because you
think it
get
will
that,
be.
yeah, those extras.
You're also supporting people. You're not just paying for extras. It's not going into. I'm not meaning anything by this, but it's not going into Chinese economy's pockets and funding their advancements. It's going into growers or people that support our industry. So the more people that we support that are actually a part of
Well,
our
you're
field and
supporting their
industry.
advancements, aren't you?
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly right. Well, that's a good point. Some of these new light advancements, this wouldn't come about if we weren't paying for these lights. So we should, yeah, it's very symbiotic. Definitely support good research.
Yeah, and I encourage people, if they do start small, then I encourage them to upgrade when they're able to. When you've
Only if you're
paid off
able to,
that
for sure.
light, invest and grow a few more and then invest in a new light, because seriously, you will get it. Once you've done it, you will get it. And it can be night and day between a couple of those lights. And yet you're only a couple of $100 difference in price. So, it's worth the investment. Definitely. And the height of your tent, that's worth an investment too. Yeah.
And you also should think about your after purchase care. If you get something from like a local store, chances are if you go back in there and you're like, "Hey, this light's dog shit. It just set fire to my entire house," they're probably going to be a little bit upset at themselves or at the company. Good luck trying to get returns through someone like Spider Farm or even a response to an email. My experiences with them almost had to get legal, so they were, yeah.
I think a few
Try.
people have had that. I think,
Yeah.
yeah, they're pretty renowned with
Their
that, despite the
customer
fact that
service
their
is
products are
absolutely
still
horrid.
good.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
even get half an order to start with. They sent half of an order. It was my first. It's how I got started, and I didn't even get the full setup when I was very disheartened. So,
Yeah.
yeah, support good people. But yeah,
Yeah,
sorry,
I'm
I
Yeah.
going to say
digressed a lot
that'll
here,
leave a
guys.
sour taste in your mouth, mate. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of
Does.
things have already, but then no one's going to discourage me.
No.
The plant loves us back too much.
It does. It definitely
It
does. It gives
does.
me
It
too much
does.
back. Like just getting in there, like as I said, sorry to keep digressing. I've had to take things down and set them back up over the last 24 hours again, and I just keep thinking to myself, like, oh, I don't know if I can. This is insanity. I can't keep staying up like this, doing this every week. And then you set it back up, and everything looks perfect, and they smile at you, and you're like, absolutely, I can fucking do this every week. I can do this
Yeah.
as long as I can sit in here and enjoy this.
Yeah.
Yep, you're walking. Oh, yeah, I love you girls.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly right.
It was so
Yeah.
worth it. I'm so glad I'm here now, though. It's
Oh
okay to
yeah,
have the process. It's a lot of hard work, man, but it does pay off.
it's commitment. It's
Yeah.
not something for normal people. You dedicate yourself to basically failure at most of your, yeah. And I'm only new to it, so I couldn't imagine what a lot of you guys have had to go through. But it's a good thing these lights are here.
Yeah.
Well, just committed. And I think if you look at everything as a learning experience, then you get a bit kinder on yourself and a bit nicer on yourself, because, we're only human, we're trying our best. And sometimes things are out of our control. So just,
Yeah.
you got to look at it as a learning experience rather than I've a failed, because I don't think anything's a failure.
No,
If
not if you
you're
learn.
going to have another go, you haven't failed at all. You've just learned something different. Yeah.
That's definitely the best way to look at it, because that was
Yeah.
my experience, learning things. I definitely killed a lot of things and,
Yep.
drenched areas with 100% humidity and,
Yep.
burnt tips and all sorts of the
Yep.
fun learning experiences of things.
Yep.
And I think that's the best part about this process too, is it's forgiving. It allows you to
Yep.
stumble
We've
through it.
all done it, and if you aren't admitting to it, you are lying.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yes.
I don't mind that side. I don't mind. I actually like getting problems because it allows me to learn. Like when I had the mold mites that I'd never encountered pests like that before. All of these issues I love. I hate the issues that can be put on us by other humans and the government. That's the shit I'm sick of dealing
Oh,
with. I'm
absolutely.
sick of dragging these
Constraints.
things around every
Yeah.
fucking once a week to hide
Yeah.
them. And
Yeah.
yeah,
That's not
nah,
right.
I'm not learning anything from this.
No, you're just fitting into the matrix because you have to. So I understand
Oh
that.
well.
Yeah.
No, and
Yeah.
I'm glad I don't have these big metal halides and all of these things.
Yeah.
I'm glad I've got these LEDs because I'm having to be very fragile when moving them as it is and hide them because of the way I sort of stash things, and I couldn't imagine having to move these big heavy bulbs
Oh
and everything like
gosh.
that.
And let alone
Yeah.
they're hot when you take them down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, or even then,
Yeah.
you got to be careful with the grease on your hands getting on the bulbs and things like that.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
like reptile lights. I think
Yeah.
they are. You can't get your finger grease and stuff on them. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Probably shouldn't with the LEDs either, but you know.
They're
No,
very
but they're a lot
forgiving.
more durable, and especially grow
Oh, I
lights.
found that out.
They have they've got some sort of coverage going on. They're generally not a direct diode, although a lot of the high end stuff actually is. So
Some of mine are. I believe my Hortitechs are. I don't think they've got much coverage at all. I could be completely wrong though. I'd need to look into them. I don't know too much about them, but I had to readjust the cable. I do know that because this is what
Yep.
brought me to the subject of these globes being fragile. Is he had to readjust some of the cabling because it was buzzing. So that's not ideal.
No.
Ooh.
Yeah. But no, it's good. It's good we have these lights.
Yeah,
It is.
definitely. Definitely.
And after, I guess, back in the day when people used to take the high pressure sodium lamps out of the actual street lights, I wonder if these new LED ones that they're putting in run the same way.
Wow.
Actually-
Just a thought, like, because I was just thinking about the old school days when people would do that. Not that I have ever done that, but I always look at the LEDs. I'm like, I wonder what type of plant you could grow under that street light.
Yeah.
I have a shape. Yeah. I wonder. Yeah, that's something I'll have to ask. Yes. I wonder what you can grow under some of these street lights, mate.
We
I,
can grow under street lights. It's been done.
Yeah, well, that's how they found out about these lights, wasn't it? Was finding things growing under these big street lights and these big parking space lights and whatnot, and then putting them in garages and going from there. Speaking of different types of LEDs, perhaps you could go a little bit more about the difference between your normal standard LEDs, like some of these newer ones, the Spider Farmers, things like that, the AC Infinities, and things like COBs, so the chip on boards. I've got a solar flare, and it's just constantly at 100% chip on board. I don't 100% know the difference in how the output works, except that it has an extremely low hertz. That's the only difference I know.
So look, a lot of the cob lights, they're using less diodes that are running at a higher kind of efficiency, higher output, like they're dialed up. And you find that they are a good light, and they'll usually have a higher kind of hanging rate and a less denser kind of chipset, but they'll also have lower run times. But running at that higher output gets you a better spectrum out of your diodes as well. So I think,
Explains a lot.
yeah, a really good
gonna
cob
ask.
light is good, is really good, and a really bad one is awful.
Because it's old. I got it on a good price and it was old. It was brand new, but it's old because these aren't made anymore. It's one of these solar extremes. And I thought being an older one, that chip on board, just constantly going, no sort of control over it, would give worse results. But I'm actually surprised. It gives it's like a 6-year-old design, and it gives
Oh yeah,
very impressive results. Very, very
California Lightworks. Oh, I remember
That's
these
the
guys. I
ones,
haven't
yeah.
I haven't looked at their lights in ages, but they
got one
were
of them.
the bee's knees of cob lighting. They knew exactly what they were doing, and
Got it very
you know,
cheap. So
yeah, and when they were making them back in the day, they were the HLGs of the LED lighting world. You'd see them come in a different hydro shop every now and again, and people would scoop them up and pay $1,800 7 years ago for something.
I got a good deal.
Yeah, yeah. So look, California Lightworks, they definitely made a good cob LED. But
I use it to spread lights. So if I've got 3 lights on either side of my larger tent, I'll actually put, when it's winter, because when it's cool, because I can't do it in summer, puts off a tremendous amount of heat. I actually use it like a spreader, and if I put it in the middle, I find I get best results everywhere around. It's a damn good light. It surprised me. But you don't see those chip on boards anymore.
no, I think that's just because of the lifetime that they can get out of having a more denser chipboard and having them spread out in like a bar fashion, because they're running at a cooler temperature at a lower output.
Definitely.
They just get such longer lifetime before the degradation of, like, I guess, the DLI and what do they call it? The color rendering index
Yeah.
of the actual light, like the actual spectrum it can generate, slightly starts to degrade, as it approaches that 100,000 hours,
Over
and
time,
it's just
yeah.
the same thing. in
I'd
my
imagine hardware's sort of restraintive too, because this particular cob I have has 2 inbuilt fans. So that probably has a big portion of it too. Fans are a big failing point in hardware.
Okay,
If I
so it's
remember,
on the
they used to run
drive.
like computer fans type of thing. So you could probably
That's what
just
it
like
looks.
bolt a bigger one to the top of it and just blow more air through it.
I'll probably just buy a newer light at that point, I guess.
Although I used to get creative back in the day. Like if something like that or that I could fix myself would come up. I'm not the best at computers and electronics, but I'll happily solder something together or fix a diode set or whatever it may be, and utilizing the most of what we got, because definitely these California Lightworks lights are the bee's knees.
Electricity is the only thing I won't play with. Electronics is the only thing I won't try and do it yourself or fix myself, just because I've not great at it.
Learn from past experiences.
Oh mate, as I said, fish tanks and electricity. Don't use your hand as the way to test if something is shorting in your water. Let me just give you that.
Is it
I used
live?
to. I thought it was great.
Yep.
I thought it was great until it was live once, and I took a quick seat afterwards. And yeah, electricity's fun.
Yeah, your fish don't tell you that it's live. They're still swimming.
Oh, there's
around.
none in there at the time. Luckily, I was testing
Ah.
new equipment and whatnot, a new setup, so I was running it through my test tank, and I was like,
Yep.
this filter seems fine. How will I test it? Well, I'll stick my hand in. It's not fine. Internal filters. Luckily, it
Yeah, and
wasn't
that
one of
goes
those
with the
smells I
same
want.
with your DWC and all that sort of stuff. Be careful.
Exactly.
Same things.
Yeah, be very careful. Like a leaking tank, and keep in mind you're using nutrients that are very conductive. Don't forget that you're using like the stuff you're
Your
putting in the
salts and
water, not the
things,
nutrients.
correct.
Sorry, yeah, the other stuff in the water that are holding these nutrients. If they're corrosive and they're conductive, and if they get into things that they can create circuits, you can run into some problems. Yeah, very corrosive stuff.
Definitely. All right. Well, let's touch on something else. Back to lighting a bit more and the its effects on growing. We got more light doesn't always equal better quality. Would you agree with that, Timmy?
Oh, absolutely. Like there's so many different biological functions that would determine the growth, of the actual THC, of the terpenes, of the CBD profilings. Like, and more light usually isn't going to get that, because if that's unutilized and the mitigation isn't there for the temperatures, you may end up just burning those off anyway from its production.
Yep.
So I think from what I was talking about earlier about focusing on getting the structure, the EC, the flow, the general environment right before kind of really jumping into the ends of these bigger lights, these $2,500, $3,000 units and stuff like that, is while you're using your Viper Spectra, do what I did and start out with just working out what processes you can improve the easiest within your knowledge base, and just keep taking little steps after that. And couple of years later, you'll be like, how do I add CO2 to this beast of a setup that I've produced? But that learning process along the way from that little baby boy LED, that's the golden ticket.
Well said, mate.
And you can get more space. So, sorry, just to say that, to touch on that real quick, instead of going and getting a $3,000 light, if you want to invest that money elsewhere, you could end up with a bigger space to learn in and have a bit more fun in. Instead of just one big expensive light, you can get a bunch of smaller ones and have a bit more fun. Like some of the cheaper ones, sorry, not small ones, but cheaper ones can fill a bit more space. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Just set up a second Viper Spectra tent.
Yeah, exactly, you're right.
And get to play around with a veg and a flower tent at the same time, and
get perpetual harvest going.
Yeah, work out how you can balance those environments and the needs of those environments in your confined space. And you will find a way, and that's the best part about it, is along this learning process, suddenly you're moving into agricultural, crop rotations and all sorts of dynamics that you're balancing at the same time.
You're building a lung room around it all. And
Yep. Yeah, and under a year.
Come to ply,
under a
circular saws.
Yep.
Yeah, the process can sometimes be more fun than the growing itself. The whole project of building it and finding it, the setup and the balance can sometimes be more fun. So don't blow your whole budget on a big expensive light. That's what I'm getting at. If you can't.
Yeah, that's some good advice.
Yeah.
But it's worth it if you've got the budget. But I don't think you'll see much of the impact early on because you got so much more to learn. That light's going to give you very little information. The other data from the growing itself is more going to help you. So yeah.
Yeah, and if
Absolutely.
everything else isn't up to par, like we're talking about, then that light's not going to do anything anyway.
Exactly. It could actually give you problems.
Yeah, that's right. You might start running into problems because your DLIs are topping out and things like that.
Mm.
And temperature. As soon as you get over 35 degrees, there
Ugh.
almost isn't like a safe ground for you to like run any light at a high temperature, like a high PPFD output is, once that temperature starts skyrocketing, the light needs to be dulled down to mitigate the temperatures, because then a 35-degree room might push the roots up out of a space that the biology is not working efficiently, and suddenly you're damaging your soil mycology alongside the plant biology, and then alongside the room integrity, and it all kind of starts falling over itself.
Mm.
Definitely. And your terpenes are just evaporating away.
They're going. They are now the property of the carbon filter.
Yep,
Yep.
definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people don't understand how volatile those are, and
Yeah.
like how they're similar volatile compounds. So the same reason you smell petrol and diesel and things like that, and why it is so powerful to us and attractive to us, is the same reason we enjoy terpenes and things like that. They're made of similar things, and we interpret them very similar, and they volatilize off similar to like petrol and
Yeah.
things like that. So yeah, light and
right,
heat
yep.
and a flower. If someone can sort of
Mm.
go into a bit of detail on that. Just a bit about so you later in flower, you don't, even if you have these big super powerful lights, running them lower will work a bit better because you don't want to heat off all of those terpenes.
That's right.
You
You're not
may
going to try to exactly, mate. Sorry, mate. Yeah,
no, you're
you're
right.
right. Yeah, you're not trying to cook them off. So sometimes lowering that light intensity, which in turn lowering your heat, is allowing those terpenes to continue to develop.
And I think too, probably respecting the space between, once you've got decent flowers that are taking off, you've got to have the space between them and your light to have it on full. That's I meant that seriously about the height of your tent, because I learnt the hard way. It can limit what type of light you can put into it, because you just can't afford to have it, with the way the plant grows. So, yeah.
No, 100%. I agree. I
Yeah,
still run into height issues, and I
yeah,
have very small
same.
sort of light
Yeah,
profiles.
and then you put a system in there like a watering system, and you've taken it up an extra notch as well,
Yeah.
because of your pots and your system
And
and
that's why
everything
mine
like
aren't on
that.
wheels. You asked
Yeah,
about the wheels, and that's why I can't put mine
yeah,
on wheels until I have to move them, and then they go on the trolley. It's because of the height.
the
And
height,
also,
exactly.
another
Yeah,
thing people don't consider is weight. We're putting
yeah,
them on these frames that are held together by their own sort of force and friction when we put the seals around it, sorry, the wrap around them, the actual tent around them.
yeah.
You don't really probably want like a 2x2 and sort of completely fill it with a light that's the weight of, I don't know, yeah, you can't. Some of these structures aren't as strong as we like to think they are. So be careful how much weight you're adding with your lights as
No,
well.
those
That's a
poles are
factor.
quite thin. Yeah.
Yeah, I've broken
Yeah.
this tent. I'm in the process of repairing because I've snapped one. Yeah, thought I had luck, but yeah, watch your weight on these tents, and especially where you've got them set up.
Yeah.
And that's another benefit of the new lights, is the weight mitigation of some, like, because they're no longer massive, big, thick quantum boards. The weight
Yeah.
spread over those four corners of the tent. Because I reckon there's definitely a few people out there that have got stories of tents catching fire because they've fallen down on top of plants with lights going and things like
Yeah.
that, due to how I guess the industry developed. Like, I know I definitely had to be very careful because even with I can't even remember I think it was like a can't remember the name of the tent, but it's no longer around anymore. It's just one of those like ones that as the Australian guys would import type of thing.
Yeah,
And
it was
and
like a
I,
imported, rebranded one.
yeah, and it collapsed, and I was like, well, I'm glad I was in the area for that. But I bet you there were some people that had issues. And
Yeah.
speaking about stretch before is kind of coming back to the diodes that they run these days, which is the LM301H Evo. A lot of that kind of stretch mitigation comes from the intense blue light like proportion of the lights, which is your blues, whites, and soft kind of sky blues, and that's 400 to 500 nanometers on the infrared spectrum. And you know it was something that I spoke about maybe a month ago. I was talking about like, I guess a far red kind of just before um
I was about to
light
say,
off.
let's dive into that spectrum then, if we're gonna touch on that.
Oh, please do, because I've got lights with added red, and I have no idea why they have added red.
Look, added red is definitely going to increase the stretch. It I guess speeds up at the end of the plant's cycle, because it's replicating like the beginning of autumn, the beginning of
Yeah, thought
the,
so.
the end of autumn, or the beginning of winter. As
Yep.
as the light begins to transition, that the sun has that bit of an intense period right at the end of the day, and
Yep.
it's still utilizing a lot of that blue and whites in there, just instead of the intense kind of summer spectrum, so
And
to
I like
speak.
to call it the rainforest spectrum too, because it's one of those spectrums that keeps penetrating. So your lights are going to absorb it.
And that's why
I mean, your
guys are
plants
adding
are going to absorb
greens in there now, because green is in the photoactive spectrum, but it's not something that plants utilize as a part of their photosynthesis.
I've been hearing about this.
But it does help draw blue spectrum through the leaves by creating I guess a less dense structure by emitting through them, and causing the blue ions to actually make it through deeper, which is another interesting kind of addition that some of these different brands and bigger brands are
And
they're
that's
adding
a
in a mint
complete
diode.
complete opposite end of the lighting spectrum.
I've heard it's got something to do with the way it pulls things through the chlorophyll and allows it to penetrate into the lower canopy. That's just what I've
Yeah,
heard.
yeah, that's exactly it.
So, would I be getting detrimental effects from my added red because I can see the red diodes? I can actually visibly see them. Would I be getting any detrimental effect during veg because I can only use them while they're on?
Well, they're encouraging stretch.
Yeah, exactly.
So I just expect more node
Right.
spacing or things like that, or
Exactly,
just
yeah, more
lights.
node
Okay.
spacing and stretch. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
if you
actually
could,
have. Sorry, go on.
I was gonna say, if you could turn off 90% of your far red during your veg, you're gonna experience immensely less stretching on the actual plants.
Right. So I've got a Gen 1 and a Gen 2 of the exact same model, and one of them has the added red and one doesn't. So I guess a little bit of an experiment. I've actually got two of each. I guess a little bit of an
That'd be
experiment.
great.
I think I'll put the details up then, because I'm actually running clones. So I've got in exactly the same setups and exactly this, and some living source. So this will
Oh,
be very interesting.
I
It'll
love
be a
this. This is
little
gonna be good.
experiment up on the Discord. Yeah, cool. I love it.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
chuck that up.
I love that.
Um,
Tink, you've actually had, sorry to interrupt, Timmy. Tink's had some experience with so a dome light that I gave her a while back, and it was just literally for a mother plant to fill a tent. It's a very white blue spectrum LED. And
Throw off a bit of heat. Yeah.
Like a
does throw off
UFO,
a,
or
yeah, exactly. Yep.
I got
And
a UFO. They're great.
but
Yeah.
this is literally an old, one of those factory replacement LEDs. So when they came in and did all the factories and replaced all the, HPS or metal halides in your factories for free, they were giving swapping them out for these. So I managed to acquire one of these, and for veg and for veg and for like a mother plant, these are perfect because you don't get a lot of stretch, but you get very dense, bushy structure due to the way of the light spectrum.
So it wasn't a grow light. It was
Ah,
one from an actual factory. It's a factory light. Is that what you're saying?
Yep,
that's why they were
correct. Yep.
chunky.
Wow.
Really tall.
Okay. Cool.
That explains a lot now.
Yeah, but you use
funny.
that in that
'Cause-
mother tent.
Yeah, no, they were two cheapies, man. They were two $20
Oh, it was a different
ones
tent.
that I
Okay.
bought 6 years ago. 6 years ago, even longer, 10 years ago. Yeah, $20 each because they were
But
my
that'll
first lights I
explains
ever
why you
bought.
don't get stretch with it. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, and they were perfect for the mother plant in that tiny, tiny little tent. But that dome, that was fun. I grew proper autos under there, dude.
Mm.
I grew a crystal cluster and I grew that Ned Kelly, that Mad Dog Morgan. And that was a solid light for me to go to, like I had the progression, which was so nice because you get to see the difference. It put off a lot more heat than the other ones, which was useful because of where I was environmentally.
But that's
But no,
5,000 K on the spectrum.
yeah,
I was going to ask that. How many
that
watts?
was like, yeah, we're
150
finally
watts.
growing a decent plant.
Really? How much? What space did you cover with that, Tink?
I had I don't know numbers.
Give us a rough estimate. One plant, two plants, one auto, two autos.
Or say I'll shove in a one plant tent, I'll shove two at least.
I
Okay.
think the tent that
Right.
it was in was 90 by 90 by 180 or by
That
240.
sounds
Wow,
spot
a
on.
150 watt factory.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that sounds
nice.
spot on. Yeah.
That's incredible. I've heard of people doing interesting things with all sorts of
Mm.
lights. There's a bloke in America, 517 legend, that runs a room of just a spreader, a 1,000 watt LED light spreader, and then everything else is just a cheap Walmart, I think he said,
Yep.
LED light that he just hangs inches from the top colas, and he just grows little top colas with little Walmart plants and a light spreader while he breeds. Yeah. No, that is cool. That's cool. It's not as expensive as we think, I guess. You can do it
No, and
yourself.
sometimes it's just about having a go, I mean, I learnt so much, even when I didn't have great cash flow and couldn't afford. I mean, I love the good stuff. Who doesn't? But that's not a good enough reason to not do it just because you can't afford the best of the best. I think you learn better if you start humbly, and work within your means and just get the best in your price bracket and cover everything, because you do need an exhaust fan and you do need a decent light and you do need some kind of decent setup, and a decent heighted tent. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree with that, and I think another good point. It's a psychological thing I'd like to touch on as well. In regards to that, is if you buy big expensive equipment and you don't have any skill, and when
Mm,
you fail, you're going to
mm,
blame yourself. You're going to say, "I have the most fanciest equipment of all these growers in the world,
yeah,
and they can grow
exactly.
this top shelf." Okay, but now you do what I did, and you're out the back with Bunnings cocoa, and you're trying to grow
Yep.
something in a greenhouse that you're watering every 3 days in cocoa with cheap nutrients, and you get nothing. You have something to sort of relieve the pressure when it's not
Yep.
necessarily the product's fault; it's your lack of knowledge. But you have a little bit to go. Okay, we're both learning here. We're both.
Yep.
I've got to improve that, and I'm going to improve my knowledge at the same time. Sometimes it's
And
not
you're
the
not
best stuff.
devastated because you've invested everything you have in it
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
failed. Yeah, you've still got
Exactly
I think it's
right.
some
the
money in the bank. You can
expectation.
go, all right,
Yeah.
I can go and buy this that's better now.
Yep.
I can go buy better soil or, yeah.
Yeah, leave yourself room to make mistakes. Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah. And even, the weirdness of it all, you actually see how beneficial a little bit better is because you understand
Absolutely.
when it wasn't, and it was, oh, I'm trying, but this is a bit wanky. It's really not good enough. But I'm glad I got what I got. And then to go on to something bigger and better and a little bit more efficient, it's like, oh, you're rewarded, for hanging in there.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and even tiny little design differences with, you look at certain products and you're like, well, why is this $300 more? And then you run it without
Yeah.
it and you're like, well, that's why.
Yeah. And what Timmy said before, it's about research, do
Yes.
some research, talk to people, get some information. People are so scared when they haven't grown and haven't had a go. They have a go, they don't get a good result. It doesn't grow any more than, 8 inches or something like that. And they're too scared to share it with anyone. We've got communities now where there's no laughing at you. There's going, well done. You grew something. You popped a bean. You've got to feel good about that.
And I
Yeah,
bet
you
it's going to
innovate the
be the
industry.
best smoke you've ever had in your life. I don't care how much
Exactly.
top
You've
shelf
Yeah.
got
you've
to be
bought.
proud of that.
That
Yeah.
little 1 gram nug that you've just
Yep.
grown and trimmed and harvested and
Yeah.
dried. Oh,
And I've noticed when you give them a bit of value about what they've actually achieved, not what they could have achieved, they go, oh, I want to have another go because this was fun and this made me feel good. And then they go and have another go and they're better at it and they produce a better plant. And then all of a sudden they're on this, oh, I just want to keep doing this because this is really good.
Yeah, 100%. You
Yeah.
see, when a child gets up and runs for the first time and it falls over, you don't make fun of it for falling over and say you'll never be good at this because you fell over. You say that's one step closer. Good fucking job. Let's keep
Yeah,
at it.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, that's exactly right, mate. Yeah,
Yeah.
well said, well put. Good
Yep.
analogy.
I agree. I've learnt a lot tonight. Thank you. This has been a great discussion.
No, I'm glad you have, and I'm
Yeah.
hoping that a lot of our listeners will take a lot out of what we've discussed here tonight too.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm not very knowledgeable on this subject, so I do apologise for my lack of input tonight.
Oh, I'm not, and I don't apologise because I just haven't got there and used all the fancy-wancy equipment. I know as much as I've used and what I've been around, and that's pretty solid too, you know? So,
It just wasn't interesting to me until Timmy sort of put a couple things into my mind that sort of lit some sparks. I went, oh, hang on, there's a bit more biology, there's a bit more life to lights than there is technology, if that makes sense. So that was interesting for me.
and I've learned it's not just about being on and off. There's a whole spectrum in between that is valuable to understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. They all matter. So yeah, your blues, your reds, your
Yep.
whites, yeah, your soft whites, your warm whites, your
And the
far
timing
reds.
of them. When you time
Yes.
using them. Yeah.
Yep.
That's super
Yep.
important too.
And don't be scared to turn it down if your plants are telling you I'm overheating, you know?
While we're on
You're
it, what's a
all
good way to
stalling
measure
out.
light? What's a good way we can tell people to measure light? Because a lot of people come asking questions and we're like, okay, how's your PPFD? Things like that. What's a cheap, easy way for people to measure light?
Phone tone is, I think it's called, is the name of the app.
Photone, yep.
Yep, is a good one. It
We'll have to
uses the
put up that
front
info.
camera in your phone.
Yep.
So,
It'll tell you to buy a diffuser. You don't need to waste your money. Get a bit of paper, cheap bit of paper,
Yeah,
cut a
just
square
a-
out, put that over it.
exactly, bit of square white paper over the top and use that as your diffuser. And that'll give you a fairly accurate reading, and accurate enough.
It's within 100, 50 to 100 is what I've heard. Not confirmed it
Okay.
myself.
Cool. There's something I learned. More I learned.
And that app
Free.
is free on App Store and everything like that too. Yep.
Yeah, cool.
It has more than just your PPFD as well. You can set your DLI. It can tell you DLI numbers, so it can translate all the information for you if you have like a program or something you're trying to figure out, or feeding schedules, anything like that. It has all the translation, so that's a good, easy app.
Oh, interesting. Good shit. I don't mind a bit of help if it's available. Like I had this.
Yeah, really
Oh,
want to know
cool.
your PPFD. So, I mean, you don't
Yeah.
really want to, you can tell by looking at the plants, as Rue just said, but when you want to be super careful with certain expensive genetics that don't tolerate indoors well, you've got to be very careful.
If you're
I've always
smashing
been.
it with light and,
Yeah.
you're looking at other things and you're going, hang on, why am I getting, browning on my tips or little things
Yeah.
like that, that might be that you're just pushing that light a little bit too hard. It might not be burning, and you might be causing, you've run out of juice in your soil, and there's so many different things, but dialing that back might just gain you a little bit too.
Well, it's funny you say that because I actually went and looked at my indoor and I think I'm exactly there. I've noticed I'm getting quite a bit of fading and we're only just into flower, it's only like weeks. So I looked at it and thought, that's interesting. And then we were talking about light and everything like that, and it like couldn't be better timing because I actually think it's just a bit of light intensity. I would have normally looked at, oh, okay, what's the feed? And I know all of that's spot on. So this has been really useful. Yeah.
What signs are they showing you? What are we looking for in sign light stress here?
I'm
What are you
nearly on the
looking at,
verge of
Tink?
a bit
Yeah.
of crispiness on my leaves,
And the
and
ends?
yeah, all over it in certain spots, and a definite bit of fading. And I don't know if that's the strain. It could be. So that's another thing I have to look at. So
You
I'm
have had a
looking.
heat wave recently too. How did they go through that?
Oh, mine did pretty good because I put mine
Okay.
on night. They
Yeah, I do the same. It makes sense.
yeah, night, and they're off during the day. And if I pop on a really hot day, I can get some extra airflow into there and even turn the fan up a bit higher, and I seem to cope really well. I haven't
It-
like hit over 26,
Any
27.
drooping? Leaf curling upwards?
Yeah, a little bit. That's what I'm saying. That's
Tarcoing,
what
I
I'm
guess, yeah.
noticing. Yeah.
Tarcoing,
Okay, yeah.
Sometimes you
Yeah.
find tarcoing. Sometimes you might find overpraying is a sign
Yes.
that
Yeah,
you're
I'm getting
overdriving.
that outside. I'm getting that on my outdoor ones.
Yeah, they're praying.
Um,
There's praying, but when those leaves are looking like those fan leaves are near up vertical.
yeah,
I used to think it was a good thing praying, and then I realized you can go too far. And I've noticed
yeah,
that exclusively, mainly in when I did frequent fertigation hydro, and when you can really, that the excessive praying is definitely one.
right. Okay. I'm not sure why it's out doing it outside, whether it's
I
also the
don't think they
wind as
care too
well, and
much. I think the
yeah,
outdoor ones will just be being outdoor ones, but the indoor ones tend to behave a little different. I'm not an expert, but I've never
yeah,
really ever seen an outdoor girl complain, and I'm in Queensland,
yeah.
complain from getting too much sun before that they would complain from getting too much heat, if that makes
Well,
No,
sense.
take that
I
phone
and I get
tone
out there.
from your tent and then take it outside in the middle of
Yeah.
a really, really
Oh,
hot
they
hot
don't
day.
cope. They're not culturally. It's like probably
No,
putting a
that
white
light
person in
meter, I'm
an
saying, Tink.
Africa. Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
saying take the light meter outside, measure the light intensity
Yes.
inside your tent, and then go and
Yeah.
measure the light
Okay.
intensity outside at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a 35-degree day.
Yeah,
It's crazy. It's
yeah.
incredible how much
I
that.
keep telling them how impressed I am with them because I couldn't
Yeah, the
stand out
outdoors
that
will
hot.
cop it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty intense on
And
the
they've
hot
Especially
got
straight in
that
the
days.
ground.
biology. They've got
Yeah,
that soil biology to back it up, to back up
yeah.
that PPFD
Yeah,
draw.
your whole yard's a living system the way you
Oh,
describe it in the
very
photos
much.
I've seen. So I don't
Yeah.
think you'll ever worry about any sort of stresses that nature can put on them, and that's not sort of third party like pests or things like that.
Yeah, and I'm doing really well with that. I'm
Oh, I'm
pretty
not.
diligent with my pest checks, and I've only had to give it spray once, and that was because we had like four, and it was only one. There was only one that they were attracted to, and it's like it didn't have enough oxygen airflow through it, so it just got a huge defole and a bit of a spray, and that none of them come back.
Sure, it's that lucky climate, huh?
Well, mate, I'm just trying to work with it. I don't think it's the luckiest climate, to be honest. I
No,
think
probably not. Yeah.
I would like just hot. I can work with just hot. Dry heat, I like that too because I love watering. But,
Mm.
you know, I'm still yet to find my perfect one. But it shows that I can work with whatever is put in front of me, and that makes me feel, pleased. I'm less fussy this year. It's like in my head, I've gone, nah, this is kind of like a guerrilla grow. Let's just see what they do themselves instead of fussing over them. So,
That's how I
like
treat
I
outdoors.
yeah, so I'm like doing my bug checks because I don't want bugs curling up in the leaves because they like to do that, and burrowing. So I do those checks and clear it out if it needs to be a bit defiled and let it go, and
Yeah.
just marvel at them and their
So,
uniqueness.
but you on your praying of your outdoor stuff, you'll find that those leaves would be like they're rigid.
Yep.
So they got a lot of cell structure.
Right. Okay.
So you can walk over and like bend those praying leaves down, and they're gonna
Yep.
bend back up pretty quickly. They've
Oh
got
yeah.
good cell
2 days
structure.
and
But
they're
if you were to
straight
do
back up.
that to something like that's praying that hard indoors, generally that
Yep.
leaf's just going to sort of snap off. It's going to be full of
Right.
water, and so that's a good sign, or not a
Yep.
good sign, but it's a sign that there's light stress. Like you
Right.
said, the tacoing.
Right. Okay. And the hardening of the stems.
Well, they're not hard. They'd be they're growing because you're demanding a lot from them, but there's not a lot of cell structure to them.
Okay. Right.
So there's
Right.
not a lot of
I get you.
rigidity to them, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Yep. No, it does. It
And
makes
then you've
perfect
got
sense
your
now.
and your transpiration and things like that. You'll
Yep.
notice, like, you're sweating, your plant's
Yep.
sweating under the leaves, and anywhere a leaf
Absolutely.
touches
Right in the
another
guts of
leaf,
it
you
too, if
yeah.
it's not opened up. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, where your leaves touch each other. Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, there's some other little light stress factors.
Mm.
I think we've pretty much covered everything so far to do with lighting. Well,
And some extra.
I think we've
and some
given it a
extras,
good go.
definitely.
Yeah.
Timmy, anything else you'd like to add here, mate?
No, I think you guys have pretty much summed it all up there, and kind of tie the little nice bow on it is let's focus on our environments, let's focus on our soil, let's focus on the structure, let's focus on a lot of things before investing in expensive lights, because the grassroots and ground up learning is what's going to get you the best results every time.
Yeah, definitely.
Wise
And
advice.
and a good little note to that, I reckon, is like quality lives just below the limit. So
Mm.
if you're pushing the limit, you're probably sacrificing quality.
That's good advice too.
That's good advice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just dial it back a little bit if you're
Yeah.
only getting 2.5 pound and everyone else is getting 3.5. You know,
Yeah.
they might be getting more weight and more yield, but you're probably, chances are you're getting higher terpene production, more cannabinoids, and a lot
Yeah.
better quality product.
A way sweeter smoke. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that brings us to the end of tonight's show. Thanks everyone for listening. Anyone who tuned in, thanks for that. And we'll see you again next week. We've got an exciting one coming up. So thanks everyone, and we'll speak again soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good night, guys.
Bless
See you
you.
later. Take care.
Give me a home out in the bush, please, with lots of more trees, a bung or two, me mate Wild Roo, and the rest of the crew, with Timmy, Ting, and Bud too.
This episode of the Terpene Table is brought to you by Growers Pal. Aussie legends when it comes to keeping your clones safe in transit. If you've ever tried to post a cutting wrapped in wet paper towel and cling wrap, you'll know it's a gamble at best. Growers Pal clone shippers take the guesswork out of it. Purpose built with segmented compartments to keep your genetics snug, and even a little LED light to keep them happy on the road. Whether they're headed up the coast or across the country, you can trust your prize cuts will land fresh, not fried. They're mates of the Roo and they're mates of the Discord, so you know their growers looking out for you, not just trying to sell you something. Head over to growerspal.com.au. That's www.growerspal.com.au and sort yourself out with a proper kit for moving your genetics across the country, because good clones deserve a fair dinkum safe ride.
At Blazing Trail, we're on a joyful adventure celebrating life, love, and nature's beauty. We cultivate vibrant outdoor connections, foster community collaborations, and source wholesome treasures like our Sprout seed starter for precise, energy-efficient germination, and FlexiGerm silicon seed pods for sustainable, airflow-enhanced sprouting. All with the care for our world. Join us in blazing a sustainable trail filled with laughter and magic. Visit blazingtrail.com.au.
While we're on the subject of good gear, I'm going to give a cheeky shout out to my own spot, the Wild Vault. It's packed with glass, gadgets, and grow gear, all the little treasures that make your sesh just that bit sweeter. So, if you're looking for something fresh to add to your kit, swing by thewildvault.xyz and have a sticky beak. It's basically a toy box for grown-up stoners. And hey, if it's genetics you're chasing, head over to our mates at wildrootcultivars.com and check out what they've got cooking. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time at the Terpene Table.